This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Zero Procure. Zero Procure takes the time to understand your business, whether in hospitality or any other industry, and do all the heavy lifting when it comes to procurement. I'm delighted that their support will keep this show accessible and free to listen to wherever you access your podcasts. Please get in touch with them for a chat. Just click on the link in the show notes or visit their site at zeroprocure.com/podcast. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Dan Nash, founder of brand agency 68 and storyteller extraordinaire. Coming up on today's show, Dan sets the scene for our chat.
So I would describe my path as torturous.
Phil brands himself in the usual way. And here I go, start talking about weather again. Honestly, I'm so British, it's unbelievable. And Dan reveals that idea generation is not always sunshine and rainbows.
I think it horrified a lot of people, including the investors.
All that and so much more as Dan chats us through his journey to date. Dan's story is the epitome of what finding your why looks like, but also how important the what is within that too. But what sets this apart is that Dan talks about the challenges he's had to get to where he is, a lot of which I believe we can all relate to. He also drops some gold around branding and brand storytelling throughout, and there are so many great takeaways. We're here each week telling the stories of the amazing people within hospitality, so please don't forget to give us a like, share and a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening. It really does make a huge difference. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. Today we move into the world of branding and marketing. And I'm delighted to welcome the founder of 68 Agency and Storyteller Extraordinaire. I am sure we will talk about that at some point. Welcome, Dan Nash.
Hey Phil, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. How's life?
Life is good. So I live in Margate and I spent all year waiting for the sun to come out and now it has. So life is good.
Yeah, for reference, we're recording this on the 14th of June, 2022. And yeah, summer has finally made it. After threatening to arrive on the bus and then it goes home on the train and then now it here looks like it's staying for a while. And here I go, start talking about weather again. Honestly, I'm so British, it's unbelievable.
Sorry, that was a very British response by me as well, but
yeah,
but here we are.
Indeed. So where are you recording from today?
So I'm in my workspace in Margate, which a lovely space overlooking the sea.
Excellent. Yeah, cool. How long have you been Margate way? Are you born and bred?
Not at all. I'm London born and bred, and I was a classic London lockdown move. I came here, moved here 2 years ago, came for a month just to escape for London, but I had fallen out of love for London for a while, but hadn't figured out how I get out and came here for a month and so that became another month. And then suddenly I was like, I think my answer lies here. And yeah,
Right.
I've been very happy ever since. So another unexpected lockdown thing to happen, but I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, cool. And the food scene in Margate, as I understand it, is absolutely on the move.
It is. I mean, I'd say the last 6 months, it's almost every day there's something new happening here. It's really exploded a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So very interesting to see where that goes.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've actually had a previous guest on the show, Natalia Rib. I can't remember how to pronounce it. She'll kill me for that. Yeah. She's pretty prominent in that down that way, and I think she's got something new, or might have even launched it already.
No, they're just about to. It's just actually next to where I live, another place. So yeah, they're building a little Margate mini empire there. But no, Natalia's great. So
yeah,
fully supportive of that.
No, absolutely. And I apologize for getting your name wrong again. I'm sure I did that live on the show as well. Anyway, great. Well, let's go straight to it then and let's get into your story. I mean, you are the storyteller, so now it's time to tell your story.
Let's do it.
So take us all the way back to the beginning of your career, because as we talked about before we switched the microphone on, you're kind of a late developer into hospitality, making up for it now, but we'll get to that. But I really want to kind of understand how it was that your journey, your path, and what you went into and how it's brought you here. So take us back to the beginning. What was the first job that you had?
So I would describe my path as torturous.
Fair enough.
My issue, I'm a creative person, but I spent most of my life doing uncreative work,
right.
which caused me no small amount of pain and angst. But actually, in the beginning, some of my original jobs were around storytelling. I worked for a film production company. I worked in TV, theatre. One of the first, in the days of like one of the first YouTubes before dial-up. Sorry, before the broadband when it was dial-up.
My word, yeah.
And I think a lot of the issue around I was in these great opportunities, but I didn't have enough self-belief at the time as well.
Right.
And enough belief that you could make a career out of being creative. So sort of fast forward a few years, I spent a lot of time doing marketing stuff in the music business. A lot of sort of content when mobile phones were exploding and the iPhone came out. And then the last sort of stop on that slightly unfulfilling journey was I was head of marketing for Napster, which sounds great and it was an interesting job. But again, I was even more responsibility of uncreative marketing stuff.
Right.
So that's sort
So
of
it's more about process as opposed to actually using that creative side of your brain.
yeah, and all the stuff, SEO and ads and user experience and web design, which is all fine, and I was forced to get good at it, but it just, there was a definite emptiness. And the big changing point for me was I got made redundant and was persuaded by my friends who were starting to have children then that I needed to go traveling. Which was great advice that I still thank them for. So I was meant to go traveling for 2 months. I ended up going for 5 years. Started
Wow.
exploring the digital nomad life. Finished up in Thailand. I would say largely trying and failing to be a digital nomad, if I'm going to be honest. So
Okay.
I bought a lot of that stuff from before. Let's say a lot of that limiting beliefs and all that crap in your head that gets worse and worse the older you get. And so even though often I was in paradise, living quite an amazing life, but I was still this emptiness from not fulfilling my potential and not doing enough creative stuff. But where things changed for me was I was surrounded by all these amazing people who were traveling the world, who built making good money, but building businesses. They fit their work around their life and had built businesses around their passions and who they were. And suddenly it made it very real for me. It was like, actually, you can have the life of your dreams,
Yeah.
but there's things you need to do. And then that inspired me I can come on to this. Like food and restaurants have always been a massive passion of mine. The great thing of if I had my time again, I would have been involved from the get go.
Right.
But it inspired me to then go and do what I love. And I was getting old. I wouldn't recommend this to other people to wait so long that you'll get so frustrated that you just think, right, I just have to, because I can't go another minute without following my passion. And so I made the hard decision then to come back to London and try and break it into the hospitality business.
So that was more about then at this point you're I suppose having the opportunity to combine two passions. One, food and drink, and two, obviously your marketing creative brain around that as well. So
Mm.
it's funny, that we talk to a lot of people about how some people come late to the thing that they're supposed to do, and some people know from the age of 14, this is the thing for me. I'm doing it. And I've had both types on the show, and I suppose it demonstrates to the wider world, I hope, is that it doesn't really matter when you find it. As long as you, if you're like in your situation, you were unfulfilled, as long as you recognize that and you are willing to do something about it, then it's never too late, as it were.
100%.
Because you're still a young man.
Well, it depends on your definition of that. I've still got a bit of time. There's still a bit of life left in a bit of life left there. Well, I hope it does inspire some people, because it's always that thing like if I knew what I knew now. And I think for me, when I look back on it, I call it being a hater. When you look at other people doing these things and you think, I could do better than that, but you don't. And
Right.
actually, what I've learned is if you deep down feel that you could do that thing and you could do better, then you probably could.
Yeah.
But then the issue is it will take years and you've got to eat a lot of crap to get there on the way. But that was a big learning for me as well.
Yeah, and also I suppose as well in your situation, having to shake off the limiting beliefs. I mean, that's quite a deep rooted thing, right? That you can't just click
Oh, no.
something. Sometimes it takes years to kind of shake that off. Sometimes an event, shakes the ground beneath you. In your case, what was it? An event, or was it just a series of just being frustrated for far too long?
It's a good question. It's definitely a process. I'd say it's still ongoing. And actually, what I've learned is a never-ending series of doing uncomfortable things. And the more uncomfortable stuff you do and the more you put yourself out there, as hard as it is, you grow that little bit more every time. And I'd say sort of from my earlier life, I just didn't. I took the short-term avoiding pain approach. And this time I've been winning and and having to get help and business coaches and communities and whatever, accountability, but getting pushed to do that, to do those hard things. And so it definitely didn't happen overnight. Yeah.
Yeah, and tough as well, I suppose, in your circumstance, because it is your own thing, and so you're first of all accountable to yourself. If you don't get up and do it, nobody else is going to do it, as it were. But sometimes that can be a really, really daunting thing, especially when you start out on your own. About you become master of, well, you have to become master of everything, and on day one, you're not master of everything at all, are you? That's the comfort zone thing again. You've got to keep stretching that to get to the position where you feel like you've got a handle on most things.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, just a final thing on that is I would also say the difference from doing a lot of unfulfilling work and the effect that had on me. And now, even though launching this current incarnation of my business has probably been the hardest, most challenging thing that I've done from all of this, is the difference in motivation when you are 100% behind and into what you're doing. So this is, for me, this is the first time that I'm like, I will be broke and homeless trying to make this work. That's how much I believe in it.
Yeah,
And it's amazing how what you're willing to then do those harder things. And yeah,
yeah,
that was an interesting thing again that I wish I'd known a little bit earlier. But there you go.
yeah, yeah. So you're now doing something that sings to you. So tell us a bit about your company, your focus, and kind of what your successes have been so far.
Sure. So I help. I call them obsessive food brands. And these are brands who want to make more impact on their community beyond just the product they sell. And what I do is help them turn their customers into a cult following, because I believe that you can make the world a better place and make more money, and they can go hand in hand.
Yeah,
And to do this over the years, I've developed, I call it my cult brand system, which is a very unique framework based on my experiences and my frustrations with the other solutions I saw out there. And that lets anyone, well, not I mean anyone that's really that wants that, to get more love from their customers and stand out from the competition and make the world a better place based on who you are and your values.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing about business, right? There, I think for a long time there, it felt like it was just about it was profit, profit, profit. And I've talked about this on the show before as well. That obviously profit is massively important in business, but if that's the driver for doing it, then your drivers are wrong. The profit should be the outcome of doing everything else to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I live and die by. Because there are people that can just say, "Well, look, we're smashing at the moment. We don't need any of this brand stuff or this story stuff." But really, there's kind of an old school attitude now because the world is changing. There is a new generation coming up who really want that. And one stat I love is that I think it was between 2017 and 2019 in America, B Corp companies grew on average by about 24%, whereas the average business grew by 3%. And for me,
Right?
that really just says it all. I love that
Yeah.
it's hard work to be a B Corp, but again, you can make money and make the world a better place, and they actually kind of work together rather than against
Yeah.
each other.
It's about taking the long term view, right? I had Danny Pecorelli on, who is the chief exec of Exclusive Hotels. They became the first hotel company in the UK to get B Corp status, and he talked about this perception around the fact that to do something like that, to do something for the greater good, is expensive. And whilst the short term view of that might be, yes, you might have to spend a little bit extra money on XYZ here, actually, what you're going to see in the medium to long term, and you've just demonstrated that with the stats that you kind of said as well, is that actually you'll see much better growth. And it stands to reason, right? That as you said quite rightly, I work in recruitment, and we have a recruitment crisis at the moment. And part of that for me is about there's a disconnect between us understanding what the workforce want from their role and then actually implementing what they want. And part of that, the generations coming through now, as you say, are very much centered around what are you doing to save the planet? Or what are you doing to make your community better? Or what are you doing to just make the world a better place? And if you don't get on board with that, then you're going to get left behind pretty quickly, I'd have thought.
Yeah, 100%. And that's all. I always say, what would happen if an exactly the same business opened next door to you tomorrow? How are you going to protect yourself? And that's one of the best ways that you can, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah, because otherwise, if a business does come and open and does do those things, they are going to steal, all those younger generations just instantly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about the fact that you're a storyteller extraordinaire. I mean, I'd follow a lot of your stuff, and you do talk about the importance of this a lot, without kind of, I suppose,
Yeah.
giving away all your deepest, darkest secrets as to why somebody would come and retain your services to help them. Why is storytelling for you so important?
Again, as I said, it's not for everyone. It's got to be for people that do actually have a story. And just to clarify, because as much as I love working in brand, there's a lot of jargon and BS around all these terms and storytelling and strategy. So for me, brand storytelling and telling a story is everything you do and everything you say to shape people's perceptions of you. So just to clarify, because often a lot of people think storytelling is this whole once upon a time there was a founder. It's definitely a part of it, but you can't
Yeah.
you can't build a whole communication strategy on just telling relentless stories as much as other people might tell you that that's what you need to do. So it's just so storytelling is shaping people's perceptions and also doing things so you're not just talking about them. And it's just because ultimately it's to build that bit emotional connection. Like I could drown you in stats of how when customers emotionally connect to a brand, all the benefits that brings to a brand, they are so more likely to buy from you, so more likely to to open new revenue streams to anything you have to sell, so much more likely to defend and protect you, so much more likely to recommend you to others. Like the average millennial shares their positive experience with up to 17 people, they say. But then imagine the more you can share your story. So it's also making people look good because you can say, oh, I had a great meal, but these guys are aiming to do zero waste and they look after their team and they're really into Asian food, and then suddenly then those bits of the story start diffusing out as well. So you can control, you have an element of control over what it says. But really, ultimately, it just comes down to the bedrock for any business is loyal users, is your loyal customers. That's what sustainable growth is built on. And your story is a key way to get that emotional connection so they stay with you for life rather than moving to someone else that stands for more of their values. Again, I love stats. So another stat, they said
Yeah.
people that left a brand, why did you do it? 90% said because the other brand shared their outlook and values were more in line with me. So, for those that think it's just about the product, I'm sorry to say it's a hell of a lot more than that.
Yeah, no, but I definitely don't be sorry for saying that, because I think it's absolutely critical. And I think I actually saw one of your posts. In fact, it might have been today. You were on a webinar or something like that around a brand that had used its authentic voice to build the following, basically, and then they became a legit company because they'd kind of made it, and the tone completely changed, and as a result of that, started to disconnect a little bit from the people that they'd worked so hard to get in the first place.
Yeah. Thanks for reading that post. I just thought it was really interesting, and I honestly hear this again and again for every independent founder that started to scale their business, where they say that suddenly after they start opening a few sites, that suddenly there's this pressure that we have to use corporate voice and we have to remove all the personality, the whole reason that people came to you in the first place, and just by and that's but conversely, but it's actually then suddenly just if they keep doing that, they're killing all that good work, and actually they're going to plateau. And if this is my one, I guess the biggest principle I have is that everyone should run their pages like it was their personal page, which I know isn't always possible, but that is the driving principle: is that it should be as close to your personal page if you want to get results. If you want to get results for that time and money you're putting in. But it's interesting because to launch a food business, talking about doing uncomfortable things means doing so many hard, uncomfortable things to run a food business. But then when it comes to communicating, people suddenly they just freeze up, and it's suddenly they have this block, whereas. And I know it's a very human thing, and I'm sure there's deep psychological reasons for it. But yeah, it's amazing how many people, and people who built these incredible businesses with a great story, then suddenly start freezing up when it comes up to sharing this, and also that people are gagging to hear it. People want to know about this and will really want to support you and your brand, like these community you've spent so long building this love from and putting your heart and soul into. And it's anyway, my mission to change that, so I can talk about this forever.
Yeah, no, that's awesome though. I think a lot more people, and especially within the world of kind of founder-led businesses, I'm in a founder-led business myself. So, you have to wear many hats, and especially when you're, I suppose, on the one hand, you want to entice people to come use your product, service, whatever. On the other hand, you have to maintain reputation. So that, I suppose, can lead to confusion a little bit around what that voice should sound like. Because if you're being too familiar, perhaps in the tone of your languaging through marketing, does that then come across as that you're not serious when it comes to the business side of stuff? But I think that from what I'm hearing, and certainly from that post you put this morning, it's definitely just about maintaining authenticity, maintaining who you are as a human and what you stand for, and therefore what your business stands for because it's usually an extension of the values of the founder. So just make sure that you're kind of always being true to that.
Yeah, I mean, you summed that up very well. I always say people buy your process, not the product. And by the process is everything that goes, that every single thing. If you're going to a restaurant, every single aspect that went into shaping that plate of food, from the kitchen you did stages in, to the podcast you listened to the chefs that mentored you, to, whatever, the magazines you read that may or may not have anything to do with food. Every single one of those, no one can copy that. And that all influences, because food is creativity. And it's a creative process. Creativity comes from everywhere, and share it because people want to know about it.
Yeah. Awesome. So you mentioned on your website, I believe, I've written this down because I thought this was really cool. You're the founder of 6/8, Southeast Asian Food Geek. So I'm guessing that came from your traveling.
It's a good guess.
Because you're in that area, weren't you?
Yeah, I lived in Laos, and then I lived in Thailand, and I traveled a lot around the area. That took my love to the next level, but actually it goes a lot earlier than that. So, I mean, food's always been in my blood. My grandma had a restaurant, and then my parents love Chinese food. They met at a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown, which is a great origin story for me. Because
Fantastic.
actually Asian food is such a part of my sort of personal brand.
God, it's actually part of your story.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And at uni, I remember just because we used to do a lot of Chinese food, I missed it, and I learned to sort of recreate these dishes to quite a high level. And actually, just only because I have worked on my own story. So what's really interesting is my grandma used to nuke everything with salt. My mum eats with like one hand with the spoon and the other hand with salt, pouring the salt into it. And she carries an aromat sort of Swiss MSG powder because salt doesn't give her the hit she needs. And I have this very extensive soy sauce collection because it's the saltiest condiment that there is. So there's actually an interesting line taking me all the way through there. But then, of course, living in Southeast Asia took that to a whole other dimension, and it's all I cook. And I've started up an Asian cooking club here in Margate. So yeah, another thing I could talk about in great detail until people's eyes roll into the back of their heads.
Yeah, but then that must then give you that extra level of passion to believe in what you're doing, because you obviously clearly care about food, and specifically more about Asian food because it plays such a massive part in your life. But nevertheless, food just in its who out there has not been traveling, who even likes just food a little bit, wouldn't class themselves as a monster foodie, but who doesn't love to go to the little local restaurant and just uncover an absolute gem of a place, whether that's street food or restaurant or whatever. But something that's just really, really cool. And that's, to me, one of the reasons why I love hospitality, because it's the traveling element is just there. It's part of the makeup of the restaurant. And even if you operate a series of restaurants that are local to wherever you were born and brought up in, I guarantee you, when you go traveling, you pick up ideas, you pick up new things that you see that actually that would work well in my business. Traveling for me is essential. Like the 2 years that have preceded us, where we were a little locked down. Oh God, I was so happy to get traveling again last year.
Yeah, and then it sounds like we're the same because for me, the greatest thrill in the world is just finding that when you're traveling that tiny little spot where it's just full of locals that's totally off the grid and they do
Yeah.
something incredible and it just costs a few quids and those are like my best memories. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So what have you got your head in at the moment in terms of what's 6-8 up to?
So at the moment, I mean, just plugging away. I am speaking to more. I've just done a project with Ui Vegan, who are an amazing vegan brand, and I'm finding the vegan, actually an alcohol-free space, very interesting at the moment. I just find it just purely as just someone who's fascinated by food, just this whole creative process about how you try and recreate these tastes, just by through innovation and just through really interesting process is really interesting to me. But then in doing some of the research on this project, I just found that so one of my I said my mission is to help people with amazing stories do a better job of it. And I've noticed, particularly with vegan brands, where your customers really passionate, really care who they buy from, really care what they put into their bodies. And I've just seen so many vegan brands doing such a bad job of communicating this and building the community around it when really, I mean, there is no more passionate community than the plant-based vegan community. So
Yeah.
I'm just having a lot of conversations around that and alcohol free as well, because as someone who used to like a drink, alcohol free changed my life a bit, really. I'd say it's really helped me massively reduce my alcohol consumption. And again, I just find it very exciting and innovative. So that and looking to hire, because I've learned the hard way as a creative, you try and do it all on your own. You think that hiring will make life more difficult, but I've learned the very hard way that I cannot, because I want to start launching courses as well. I launched some pilot courses recently. I love teaching and again helping independents and smaller people who can't afford my services to share their story too. But it all comes back to getting help. So that's my challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, do you live and learn, right? And if you're getting busier and busier, then that obviously that makes sense. But I absolutely hear you on the low and no category, and drinks is just on such a monster trajectory. The theory behind this is that the next generation coming through are not drinking, basically, or certainly not to the level that you and I might have done when we were 18 years old. And as a result, as you say, people are having to innovate in that space. And actually, this drink that I'm drinking today is a fermented tea.
Nice.
Yeah, and I wouldn't 5 years ago. Not that I'd have been sat here drinking a beer right now.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
At 4:30 in the afternoon, and the sun's out. But it's just it makes sense, right? My wife and I always talked about the fact that our generation used to look at the generation before us who were massively smokers, and we used to look at them and go, how stupid were they? The generation now, I think we always then talked about people would look at the same view as sugar and think how stupid were we to be so sugar orientated for so long. But now we're in a situation whereby it's alcohol, right? Is the people are looking at it going, why are you putting this thing in your body when there's a healthier option out there?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's exciting, and I think kind of making the world. Yeah, I think it makes the world better. People don't need to, especially English people. We don't need to be all that drunk all the time. It doesn't
No,
help us.
no, indeed, certainly. We need to strengthen our reputation overseas at the moment, not weaken it. Well, that's a story for another day, I think. From your career so far, your travels, have you got any? I like to ask this of everyone because for me, fun is such a big part of life. Do you have any funny stories that you could share with us from your time on this planet so far?
Yeah, again just thinking what I'm willing to share. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do some work. I think of maybe some work stuff, but I have to think a bit more about personal about what I'm willing to share.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
It's a kind of underlying theme. I'm gonna have to think of a different way to word it. But in this industry, so many things happen, but none of them are really shareable in a public domain.
yeah,
But that's also life, right? Stuff happens. You just
yeah.
dust yourself down and get on with it.
I mean, just thinking I could share some funny things that I've done from my professional experiences.
Yeah. Go for it.
Feel free to edit them out if they if they're not funny. But just actually, when I worked with my first restaurant gig was helping Chicken Sours launch their new QSR, which is now called Chicken Shop, was then called Chicken, and I was given full creative license. And again, I was a complete outsider. And we used to have a lot of fun. We ended up getting cease and desists from KFC, from Nando's, from Panda Express in the US for sort of copyright and just for you sort of playing around with their names, just having fun. All very polite, and we always responded. And then I remember once, which I did, I'd love to say there was a purpose behind this, but I think at that time as well, I was just a lot about making noise and getting controversy. So it was a fried chicken restaurant, and I managed to source some chicken feet and then found a nail salon and got the nail salon. I mean, it took a lot of searching to paint the nails of the chicken and then put nail jewelry on. They got a photographer and did a whole food photo shoot, sort of putting these these chicken feet in burgers and in fry packs. And I think it horrified a lot of people, including the investors.
Oh, right.
But yeah, and I don't know if there was a bit controversy for the sake of it, but I was a lot of stuff like that was a lot of fun, and so well, maybe like anyway, if it makes me laugh, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose then you have to ask the question: is it true what they say around about all publicity is good publicity, whatever perception that may be of that thing?
I've reflected, as I said in the beginning, I was very much about social media. You've got to pattern interrupt. You've got to break people's pattern when they're scrolling. It's about, as I've gone through it more, there is a thing of controversy for the sake of it. And I think the more I do my brand work now, it's about your values. Like, is this actually related to anything, a higher purpose that we believe in? Which could be, and if it is like innovation or being edgy or challenging perceptions, fine. If it's sharing a value. But if it's just, like I see a lot with the fast food brands, everyone's like, oh, it's so funny what they're doing on Twitter. I'm like, yeah, I get it. What else are you going to say about a Big Mac? So you're going to drown people in these memes and GIFs and fun stuff. But ultimately, these aren't edgy brands. They're not very purpose driven. They're not particularly funny. And then it just feels a bit tacked on and not, I mean, that's, again, as always, my opinion. But yeah, there is a thing as controversy for the sake of it as I go through on this journey.
What's your take on using humor in marketing? And the reason I asked that is because I properly got Facebook marketed to the other day. It's I was scrolling as people do, and I got interrupted by, it was a soap actually. I can't even remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was Doctor something, and the advert drew me in like within seconds, and the advert is hilarious. It's wonderfully hilarious. Certainly, it appealed to my humor. So now in my head, I'm feeling like I want to give this brand a go, because it feels like they have absolutely worked hard on getting this messaging certainly across in a way that I could relate to. Do you think that humor has its place in marketing?
I'd say you can't, these days, you can't do marketing without humor.
Really?
It depends on the brand. Of course, it depends on the brand. If you're a 3-star Michelin restaurant, you're not going to drown people in gifts.
Yeah.
But you've got to meet people where they are. People go to social media to be primarily entertained, but also to be educated and inspired. And so what they did there, they just triggered an emotion on you. And so, yeah, but I'd say if a 3-star Michelin restaurant is on social media, and especially with TikTok being the future, you can still have a bit of fun around it. Like if it's just serious face all the time, it's fine, but it's not what people want to go to social media for. So you can balance it up a bit. I know, again, just from using a very good ads partner for some of the restaurants I've worked with, the ones where because you've got not even a second to stop people in their tracks, using humor, those ads where we were really quite outrageous and bold in what we were saying, always did far better.
Right.
So I think in that instance, definitely use humor. You want to grab people's attention, use humor. And sorry to go back as well, I think one of the issues is you have, if there's a line, and at one end, let's say you've got the fast food chains, they don't have much purpose. There's not really much substance there. And they're smart. So they do all this fun stuff and putting all their money into the fun stuff. At the other end of the line, you've got, let's say, the Patagonias of this world, or let's make a food example, like Silo, like the zero waste restaurant in London.
Yep.
Very purpose driven. But so many other restaurants are just in the middle because it's so neutral, and they're too scared. Look, it's hard being funny. It's an investment, and you need the right person to do it. But they won't go the funny route because they're too scared to do that, and they won't go the purpose route because they're too scared to do that. So it's just very neutral in between space, and no one signs up to a newsletter, no one goes onto social media for neutral, ultimately buy my shit type messages,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the issue. So you really pick a lane, have fun with it, go purpose driven, ideally a bit of both, but being neutral, no one wants that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense. And I suppose as well, then that's probably the business / founder's own limiting beliefs coming into play again, right? They're struggling to take themselves outside of their comfort zone. If humor doesn't
Yeah.
come naturally to them, or the values, and they haven't really truly figured out what that is, because sometimes you need help, right, to help draw that out yourself as to the reason why you do something.
100%. And it's not fair. Look, it's not fair because a lot of operators and founders do this because they wanted to create amazing food and make people happy with that, not to make videos of themselves dancing on TikTok.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I don't love the whole Reels TikTok thing. That's not me, but I can't fight. If I fight that, I'll sound like a dinosaur. Like, that is the way the world's going, whether I like it or not. If I was to launch a brand tomorrow,
Yeah.
and that's where my customers are. But it's like, as I've learned myself the hard way, it's why, I have an amazing business coach, is if you really struggle with it, then get help, really.
Yeah.
Rather than just
I
trying
mean,
to plug on and keep doing the same things that don't get results.
totally. And you're applying that in your own business as well, right? So you're kind of, I couldn't agree more. I think we're as founders, we're sometimes a little bit too proud to ask for help to plug the gaps where we don't have the natural skill set, because you can't be good at everything, right? It's just impossible. Yeah. I want to talk to you about building a tribe, because that's something that you talk a lot around in terms of, that's what you're actually looking for. You're looking for people to effectively be part of your tribe in terms of what your product or service stands for, etc. Again, without giving too much away, without going on a retainer for all of the listeners today, but what does that process involve? How does people get started in that, other than retaining your services, of course?
Of course, well, it's a great place to start. But
Yeah.
you can also choose to do it yourselves. And actually, I'd say for a lot of people, even just everyone's so busy, just take half a day or a day to do the work will give you so much benefit than just blindly rushing forward trying to communicate without doing the work. So the first step is you've got to do the work on your brand, who you are, who your customers are, why they should choose you. Number one, the absolute foundation, your substance, what makes you authentic. And I know this is where a lot of people roll their eyes. This other brand guy charging us 20 grand for these words that are meaningless, but they're not. They have a lot of meaning, but you have to. When I work with people as well, this is a problem. A lot of brand agencies will give you sort of one slide on tone of voice, one slide on content pillars and your values. For me, it's like you have to be able to. We'll do them, but can you demonstrate these every day?
Yeah.
How are you demonstrating them? And are you willing to do hard, uncomfortable things to do them as well? Because to be authentic, you have to do things for your community based on who you are, and they can be hard, and they can take time, and they can cost money. So the first step is doing the work on who you are and your substance. The second point, this is really my superpower and speciality, is then building a framework for the messages you want to be known for and the story framework. What are the things you're going to talk about? Because we all know the frustrations. I suppose it's what I hear every day, of staring at that blank marketing calendar of what the hell do I do next? Well, if you had a plan, then you know what to do next. So the first part, doing the work, get your framework for who you are, framework for your message and story. And then the next part is you have to do things for your community. And this feels very counterintuitive, but it's all those small human touches that really create that community, that create the community of diehard fans that will stay with you for life. And that's what a lot of people overlook. And it can be small things like sharing your journey on Instagram and getting people to interact with new menu items, or even just making people just making people smile on a mail, or when they sign up to your newsletter or on the booking form. But then other things as well, like whether it's things for your community or how you treat your team, or just surprising and delighting your customers. Those, I've done events before for some of the clients I've worked with, and for me, there is no higher point of a brand than watching people that love your brand come together to share that passion. That those bonds, they're customers for life, and they're going to bring more people in. So that is a really key part as well. And then just keep telling that real human story is what's so essential, because that's what people are going to connect with. And that's when I look at the brands, and there are not many in hospitality to do this, but the difference in engagement from the brands that really, again, run their page like it was their personal page, but still a professional bias to it, to the others that are just doing neutral, is night and day, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. What's coming next for you? You mentioned that you've got courses in the offing that you want to focus on that, but you need to hire somebody to free up your time to get stuck into all that. But what does the rest of 2022 hold for you?
So hopefully to make the hire, hopefully get a few vegan and alcohol-free brands, launching some courses as well for the more startups and smaller independents. That I'd be very happy with that. And my dream is to be able to go on holiday next year and still make money. So that's my kind of business goal, which I won't be able to do without a team, because I just, as you go through that journey, you start thinking again, am I keeping repeating the same things, or how can I progress? And for me, I feel that to put the system in place, that whether it's my team making money or other investments, so that's a real, I think, hopefully realistic goal for me next year.
Yeah, no, that sounds like that's absolutely achievable. And I massively appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and some interesting tidbits to kind of whet the appetite. Everything you talked about makes complete sense. If people want to get a hold of you to learn more about what you do and how you might be able to help them, what's the best method for them to do that?
Sure. I'm brand story down on Instagram, but I'm not super active on that anymore. So LinkedIn's probably the best place. So just Dan Nash, stupid picture of me eating a burger. And I also have my pattern interrupt, obviously. And I have my cult brand mail, which is a bi-monthly mail where I just share inspiration and advice on how to get more love from your customers. And you can sign up at brandstories.club for that. And I also always have a few free workshops to help people out. If what I'm saying is spinning you out and you want a bit of clarity, then hit me up and we can do a workshop and give you some clarity.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Dan. Massively appreciate your time, and wish you all the very best with your plan for the year ahead. And maybe we'll come back and do another chat in a year's time to see how that plan mapped out.
I really enjoyed this chat, so I would absolutely love that. Thanks again for having me.
Fantastic. No problem at all. Have a good one. And there we have it. Another great career journey from Dan. It took him a while to find his place, but it's clear that he has done exactly that. I wish him continued success. I'll be back again next Wednesday at 8 p.m. telling more stories from the awesome humans within hospitality. But until then, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.